Hey, moms and dads, if you've tried everything to help your child from special diets to certain medications to gut healing supplements, endless therapies, and your child's still struggling, it's exhausting. It's frustrating. Maybe it's digestive issues that never seem to go away. Maybe it's anxiety that keeps them and you up at night. Maybe it's focus and behavioral issues. Regardless, I know as a parent, you're doing it all. And if it's not working, you wonder, like, what am I missing here? And that's what I want to dive into in this video because we know that chronic health issues with kids are really on a rise. 1 in 31 kids, according to the CDC, are diagnosed with autism. ADHD diagnoses have increased by 1 million in the last 6 years, an astonishing increase. And one of the challenges that we see is parents who have gone from the medical route to maybe the natural, holistic, functional route, and they're not seeing the changes and the answers that they've been looking for. So, in this video, I want to dive into one of the most critical nerves in the body that helps your child's nervous system get into healing mode. That even I find, since being in practice since 2007, a lot of natural, holistic, and even functional providers are missing. So, we're going to dive into in this video the vagus nerve. And in order to do so, I want to explain to you first what the vagus nerve does. I want to share with you some signs. I'll bring this up here again in a little bit, but different signs that your child's vagus nerve might be being affected. And then go into what we look for in our office to really assess your child's nervous system, assess their vagus nerve, and help you understand what it might take to get them back on track. Now, here's the crazy thing. Aside from 1 in 31 kids being diagnosed with autism, the CDC also shares that 40% of kids today suffer with a chronic health issue. And as a result, many parents, like yourself, are seeking answers more and more. And I want to share a quick story, actually, before we dive into things with the vagus nerve in this video. But I want to share with you a story of an adult that I just talked with his wife 2 days ago. And he's coming to see us because of mold toxicity. And he was also a painter, and he had a lot of chemical toxins in his body that were just wreaking havoc on his system. His digestion is off. He only poops every few days. He sleeps all the time, but still doesn't have energy. His immune system is a wreck. And as a result, he's experiencing mental changes, brain changes. The medical providers say, oh, I think it's early onset dementia. You should just take these medications. We can't do anything for him. He's losing his memory. He's grumpy. He's tired. He's unfocused. And his wife wants something more. So she's been doing the functional medicine approach, and she has an amazing provider that referred him in. We know her well. And they try to do a detox, but every time they do, his system gets overrun and it shuts down and he can't handle this detox. So she came to see us because she read a book called Toxic. And not only did it say, yes, you have to detox and take certain supplements and vitamins and chelators and binders and all these things to try to get the mold out of his system, but you also have to help his nervous system. And she was coming to us specifically for vagus nerve support. She noticed, as a little clue here, that when he sings or hums, because he used to be a musician, his days go better. One of the things that's doing is actually stimulating the vagus nerve. So she's coming to see us because she knows we specialize in activating the vagus nerve. And what we're going to work on together is getting the foundation of his nervous system super strong. So now his immune system, his digestion, his sleep, everything is going to be way more into an effective healing mode. So now he can handle the outside supplements and detoxes that this functional medicine provider is working him through. So, to use that as context here, what is the vagus nerve? What does it do in the body? Well, our nervous system has two major modes. The most common mode you may have heard of is the fight-flight response. We think of that as the gas pedal. It's activated when we're under stress. Now, for a lot of kids nowadays, that gas pedal is overrun. It's on all the time. Maybe it is go, go, go busyness. Maybe it was reactions to gluten or dairy or sugars and dyes and all these chemical stresses. Maybe it's environmental toxins. We'll talk in a little bit here. One of the earlier stresses actually is commonly from labor and delivery. But ultimately, in today's world, gas pedal is really easy to be slammed on hard. Where the vagus nerve comes in is it actually is activating now the brake pedal. Vagus nerve calms and regulates the nervous system to put the body into healing mode. So the vagus nerve is critical for digestion, for immune system, for having a good poop, for clearing out colds and ear infections and strep throat and RSV and pneumonia and all these immune challenges nice and easy. It's also critical to regulate emotions and behaviors. So if your child struggles with big outbursts, maybe they rev up and they can never come back down. If they deal with anxiety, autism, ADHD, sensory processing issues, all of these are very commonly tied to a vagus nerve that's not working well. So I want to go into then what are some of the clues based on what I just said that your child's vagus nerve might be off and might be looking for some help. So on this list here, you can see the very top has to do with sleep. So if your child can't sleep well, of course they're not going to get into healing mode and recovery mode. Vagus nerve is one of the most critical things that not only winds us down at the end of the day to shut our brain off to fall asleep, but if we wake up a little at night, it brings us back into deep sleep so we don't just stay awake all night or have to crawl into mom and dad's bed every time we wake up. Digestive issues, as I mentioned, vagus nerve stimulates digestion from swallowing to the stomach, so it has to do with helping things like reflux. Maybe you notice that with your baby when they are your kiddo when they are an infant. It activates the stomach and it stimulates small intestine, large intestine, keeps things moving through to poop out. Illness is critical because rest and recovery help our immune system build back up. So if your child's constantly getting sick, maybe they get a cold and it lasts weeks and weeks, or they get the same thing over and over again, whether it's lungs or ears or tonsils, adenoids, throat, chronic congestion, that can often be an indicator of vagus nerve being weak. Emotions and behaviors, as I mentioned before, because the vagus nerve is the key brake pedal, it helps bring us down from feelings of stress and overwhelm. So maybe your child had really intense tantrums as a toddler, terrible twos, the teenager years were way more intense than you expected. That can often be because of vagus nerve. I mentioned sensory and anxiety. They've done studies where kids with sensory issues are more likely to have a weakened vagus nerve. And then at the bottom here, overall now your child starts to become less resilient to stress. Things affect them more and more. They can't calm down when they're revved up. Maybe it is affecting behaviors at school. Maybe it is attention, being able to sit still, get through the class on a regular basis, or be able to pay attention to what the teachers are sharing. All those have to do with the vagus nerve. So I want to share with you what can throw it off. And then the last thing, how do we measure for it? So I mentioned earlier, early on in life stresses can add up to wear the vagus nerve down. So maybe it is a stressful pregnancy. In my wife's case, she was trying to wrap up things for her business. She was working overtime, and at 34 weeks, she fell. She broke her ankle. She needed a surgery that put in 2 plates and 9 screws. That was a big stress we weren't expecting. Labor and delivery is the other big thing. Maybe there is induction, C-section, forceps, vacuum, a stalled labor. One mom we talked to, labor was 48 hours of contractions pushing, and baby's head wasn't going through. And as a result, there was an incredible amount of stress on baby's delicate neck and upper part of their nervous system. That's actually where the vagus nerve comes from. Now, if you compound things with a baby that isn't nursing well, maybe they were colicky, refluxy, those are signs of stress early on. And maybe now they did start to get sick, so they needed more antibiotics, more outside interventions, more environmental toxins they might have been exposed to, can now all really add up for your baby's nervous system. So what we do in our office, and I'm going to bring up here, is we're looking to see, is this stress added up and really long-standingly affect your child's vagus nerve? So the two main things that we do to test for vagus nerve function are this one here, heart rate variability, and this one here is a thermal scan. So ultimately we can measure if this little white dot here is outside the green, it means your child's vagus nerve is starting to weigh down and get weighed down and not work the way it's supposed to. So that's what we're looking for in this scan. And then we're also looking specifically at the upper neck. As I mentioned, the vagus nerve comes from the brainstem, which is at the base of the skull here. And what happens is if there's stress on this part of the nervous system, these bars, instead of showing up as white, will show up as either green, blue, or red. And that lets us know mild, moderate, or significant stress on that part of your child's nervous system, which means mild, moderate, or significant stress on their vagus nerve. So ultimately, what we look to do in our office is not to treat these different symptoms. And as a parent, sometimes it gets frustrating where you go to the GI doc for the constipation, you go to the ENT for the chronic ear infections, you go to the immunologist for the allergies, you go to the sleep doc because they're not falling asleep at night, and you go to the psychiatrist for their anxiety, ADHD, and autism and stress brain symptoms. And you're thinking, why do I have to do so much? So, what we do instead is say, let's take a breath. Let's take a step back and say, well, if your child's vagus nerve is off, guess what? It can affect all of those things. So let's first get your child's vagus nerve back on track. Now, parents start to report, guess what? One of the early signs is my child sleeping better. They start to poop better. Behaviors, emotions, big tantrums, big meltdowns start to become more normalized as their nervous system starts to regulate. And if after we get your child's vagus nerve on track and they do a lot of healing the way their body's designed to do, if you're still experiencing an issue in a certain category, now you can really hone in to know the one specialist to go to if you need additional help, but you don't have to feel so exhausted and so run down like you're running around like a chicken with his head cut off trying to figure out what to do next. So if that resonates, if you'd like to find out more about how your child's vagus nerve is working, please reach out. Check out our website. We have more videos, more blogs. And if you want to know what your child's scans look like, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'd love to help you take that next step.